In this video, we will look at how easy it is to find the percentage of an amount. For example, 15% of $100 is how much money? 60% of 500 centimeters is how many centimeters? 85% of 420 is what amount? And again, we'll look at what a percentage actually means. A percentage tells us how many parts per 100 there are. That's all a percentage tells us. And if you look at the word percentage, the word cent is in the middle, which helps us to remember that percentage is about the number 100. We know there are 100 cents in a dollar. We know there are 100 years in a century. We know that every 100 years we celebrate what is called a centenary. And again, 100 centimeters are in a meter. So the word cent helps us to remember 100. But to find a percentage of an amount, we have to do several steps. So for example, what is 30% of 50? Well, first of all, we have to write the percentage as a fraction. So let's turn 30% into a fraction, and that is simply 30 over 100. 30% is 30 out of 100. Step 2, we multiply by the amount. And in this case, we will multiply by the number 50. We want to find 30% of 50. So we multiply by 50. And in order for the fractions to look even, we will place 50 over the number 1. Step 3, we will reduce to lowest terms. This involves dividing a numerator and a denominator by the same amount. And when we have percentages, often that end in 0, we can cancel zeros, which is the same thing as dividing by 10. So in this case, I have 30 and 100 that are one above the other. One is a numerator and one is a denominator, and they both end in 0. So I can divide both by 10 if I wanted, which does the same thing as canceling out the 0. I also have a 50 as a numerator and 100 as the denominator. They both end in 0. And again, I can divide both of them by 10, which is the same thing as canceling the 0. So let us choose the 30 and the 100, and we will cancel the zeros, which again is the same thing as dividing by 10. 30 divided by 10 is 3. 100 divided by 10 is 10. We now can look at the numerator of 50 and the denominator now of 10. It's not 100 anymore. We've canceled the 0, and now it's 10. And both of those end in 0. So 10 divided by 10 gives me 1. 50 divided by 10 gives me 5. It's the same thing as canceling the zeros. And now we are left with numbers that we can multiply in the numerator and the denominator. And so focusing on the numerators, we have left 3 times 5. And the denominators, the only thing that is left is the number 1 times 1. Well, we know 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times 1 is 1. And 15 divided by 1 is 15. So 30% of 50 is 15. What did we do just now? To find the percentage of a number, what we did was we wrote the percentage as a fraction. Then we multiplied by the amount. We reduced, and then we multiplied numerators and denominators. So let's look at another one. What is 20% of 60? Again, we're going to write the percentage as a fraction. 20% is 20 over 100. Then we multiply by the amount. In this case, it is $60. We will write that over 1. Now we reduce the zeros in the numerator and the denominator, because that is the same thing as dividing by 10. 20 divided by 10 is 2. 100 divided by 10 is 10. We cancel the zeros and we're left with 2 out of 10 multiplied by 60 over 1. We look again and we see that 60 in the numerator and 10 in the denominator both end in 0, so we can cancel those again. Now we are left with 2 times 6 in the numerator and 1 times 1 in the denominator. 2 times 6 is 12, 1 times 1 is 1, and 12 divided by 1 is 12. So 20% of 60 is $12. Number 3, what is 40% of $12? We write 40% as 40 over 100, and now we multiply by 12 over 1. And we look again to see if there are any zeros that are in a numerator and a denominator that we can cancel. And I see 40 and 100 both end in 0, so we cancel the zeros. We're left with 4 over 10 multiplied by 12 over 1. And now we look to see whether there is a number in a numerator and denominator that we can reduce by the same number, or that are in the same timetable. And for this question, I'm going to use the 10 and the 12. And I know that 10 and 12 are in the 2 times table, and they both can be divided by 2. So we are going to ask ourselves, how many times can 2 go into 10? I know that's 5. And how many times can 2 go into 12? That's 6. And now we multiply numerators, 4 times 6, and we multiply denominators, 5 times 1, and 4 times 6 is 24. 5 times 1 is 5. And now our answer is 24 over 5. But that's not so simple to state as dollars and cents, is it? So what we have to do now is we have to assume that 24 over 5 really means 24 divided by 5. The line that separates numerator and denominator really means divide. So we're going to use some long division, and we are going to divide 24 by 5 using our long division method. So 5 into 24, well, first 5 into 2 cannot go. So 5 into 24 goes 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. When we subtract, we get 4. And now because there aren't any more digits to bring down, we put a decimal point and we bring down a 0. 5 into 40 goes 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. And when we subtract, we're left with 0. And so our answer is a decimal value, 4.8, which in money translates into $4.80. And number 4, what is 90% of $25? Well, we change 90% into a fraction, 90 over 100, and we multiply by 25 over 1. And we look to see whether there are numbers that end in 0 that we can cancel. And I see 90 and 100 both end in 0, so I'm going to cancel those zeros right away. And now we check to see whether there are numbers in the numerator and denominator that can be divided by the same number. 10 and 25 both can be divided by 5. And so 10 divided by 5 is 2. 25 divided by 5 is 5. I check again to see if there are any other numbers that can be divided by the same number, and there aren't any. So now we multiply the numerators, we get 9 times 5. We multiply the denominators and we get 2 times 1. 9 times 5 is 45. 2 times 1 is 2. And again we have a fraction, 45 over 2. And it's not such a simple number, and so we can change that into a whole number or a decimal number through division. So we take 45 and we divide it by 2. 2 into 4 goes twice. 2 times 2 is 4. When we subtract, we're left with 0 and we bring down the 5. 2 into 5 goes twice. 2 times 2 is 4. We subtract and we're left with 1. There are no more numbers to bring down, so we have to put a decimal point and add a 0. Now 2 into 10 goes 5 times, and 5 times 2 is 10. When we subtract, we get 0 and we are done. And the answer is 22.5. We know that in money, that is $22.50. And now it's quiz time. You have 10 seconds to find the answer to the following question. 50% of $20. Time's up. The answer is $10. How did we do that? Well, 50% is 50 over 100. And we multiply by $20, 20 over 1. And we try to cancel now pairs of zeros. And first of all, I'm going to cancel this 0 and that 0, and that leaves me with 5 over 10. And again, I can see pairs of zeros. I cancel that 0 and that 0. And I'm left now with 5 times 2 over 1 times 1. Which is 10 over 1, which is $10. If you notice, 50% is 50 over 100, but it also reduces to 1/2. And we know half of 20 is 10. Remember these percentages. The following are important for you to memorize. You will see these straight throughout your career. 50%, we know that's 50 over 100. But if we cancel the zeros, we're left with 5 out of 10. And again, if we divide both by 5, 5 divided by 5, and 10 divided by 5, we will get 1/2. And so 50% is really 1/2. 25%. Well, 25% is 25 over 100. And if we divided 25 by 5 and 100 by 5, we get 5 out of 20. And again, if we divide 5 by 5 and 20 by 5, we get 1 out of 4, or 1/4. So 25% is really 1 over 4. 10%. We know 10% is 10 over 100. And if we divide by 5, we get 2 out of 20. And if we divide again by 2, we get 1 out of 10. So 10% is really 1/10. Here's quiz number 2. You have 10 seconds to find the amount, 25% of $80. Time's up. The answer is $20. And how did we do that? 25% is 25 over 100. We multiply by 80 over 1. And we cancel zeros. If I look at 10 and 25, I know they're in the 5 times table, and so I can divide by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 25 divided by 5 is 5. And if I check again, I can see that 2 and 8 are in the 2 times table, which means they both can be divided by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. And now we have 5 times 4 divided by 1 times 1. 5 times 4 is 20, 1 times 1 is 1, and 20 divided by 1 is 20. If you remember from an earlier slide, we said that 25% is really 1/4. And so 1/4 of 80 is 20. When we reduce our fractions into lowest terms, we can work with the numbers a little bit better. And now question 3. Find the amount. 10% of $60. Time's up. 10% of $60 is $6. And here's how we did that. 10% is 10 over 100. Of means multiply. And $60, we put 60 over 1. I can see pairs of zeros, and I can choose any pair as long as one is in the numerator and one is in the denominator to cancel. So I'm going to cancel this 0 and that 0. And now I have to look again to see if there is a pair of numbers that I can divide by the same number, or if there is another pair of zeros that I can cancel. Often canceling zeros is a quick way to get to lowest terms. And I see a pair of zeros, so I'm going to cancel that 0 and that 0, and I'm left with 1 times 6 over 1 times 1. 1 times 6 is 6, 1 times 1 is 1, 6 divided by 1 is 6. If you recall, 10% is really 1/10. And 1/10 of 60 is 6. But if you have a look at the question and the answer, $60 and $6, you can see the digit 6 in both. And this is because anytime you find 10% of a number, all that you really need to do is to move the decimal place 1 place to the left and put the decimal place, and that is your answer. And now you've solved the mystery of how to find the percentage of an amount. Fantastic.